last week we learned about cultural differences, and then we learned that it's cultural differences is an empirical fact. And then we also learned that when you conclude that because people are different or cultures are different, therefore what is right or wrong is also determined by the culture, then we are also arguing as ethical relativists. And then we also learned that ethical relativism is not the same as cultural relativism. Oh,
very good.
So therefore, there must be certain principles
for
fundamental human values. There must be certain principles for fundamental human values. Any functions or surviving society must necessarily cherish and value and subscribe to certain standards. And that's what I remember.
Thank you very much, Selo.
Okay.
It's a good start.
Okay.
I'll take Mariam now. Mariam Amadou. Mariam, please go ahead. I'm just listening to you. See, I'm not projecting this slide. I want to hear you from our discussion so far.
Yeah. Please, last week we talked about, like we said, we cannot argue the empirical fact that people live differently in terms of what they eat, wear, or believe. And we also said that ethics, like, it answers what is good or bad. Like,
thank you, madam. Well done. Irene Saki, that is more like the class. Go ahead, Irene. Irene, we are waiting, please. Any other person? I think Irene is having a little challenge. Irene, you are muted, so you may want to unmute before. Then we can hear you. Okay. Any other person wants to tell us what they learned, what they heard, what they have engaged, even on the slides since last week? I'm still waiting. We did so much, so I want to hear from you. Then I'll mop up the second one and then start the last one. We are receiving confirmation from UGCS on your IA dates, and from the way we see, it will trail to the 20th or so, quite late in the semester, which means right after the IA, you may have just a week or so, and then it will be final exam. That piles a lot up on you. So I want to help you manage that very well. Some of you are happy. Rama, go ahead. Your hand is shut down. Some of you are happy because then I stays a little late. It's not coming anytime soon, but it only piles up and gives you so much work that you have to cover. But either way, I'm here to help you. Please go ahead. What did you hear, Rama? Oh, Rama, please go ahead. You are muted. Vicentia. Okay, I see Bitson, Randolph, Labi. Bitson, go ahead.
Okay, madam, last week, madam, please can you hear me?
Yes, please, I can.
Okay, madam, please, last week we did absolutism, the challenges against absolutism or universalism. Yes, and we spoke about three challenges: the emotivist response, the subjectivist response, and the relativist response. And we said the emotivist response says that there are no moral facts to what we say as good or bad. But the subjectivist response, they believe that what the person is doing, the person is the one who determines whatever he's doing as good or bad. Yes, and under the relativist response, we broke it down into two. That the first one was the moral relativism, the moral relativist response, and the other part was the cultural relativist. And we said that the cultural relativist response assert to the naturalistic fallacy. That was what I learned from last week.
Well done. Well done. You've touched on so many things also. That's very good. Well done. Let's take Martin. Okay, Donko. I see Martin Donko. Okay, Martin, go ahead. Let me mute all. Then Martin can unmute again. Please keep your backgrounds quiet as much as you can. Martin, go ahead, please. Is Martin there or is having a network challenge? Wait a little. Martin, go ahead. Go ahead, please. All right, if Martin is not able to, I think it might be a network challenge. We can take Prince Apia Dankwa. I want everyone to be listening to yourselves. These are your colleagues contributing and helping us remember what we did already. It should inspire you. That's why I'm waiting, okay? I want to hear from the class, and that way you help yourself. So Prince, go ahead. Prince Apia Dankwa.
Okay, Doc. Okay, Doc. Please, last week we learned that we cannot contest or argue the empirical facts that people live differently. And then also we talked about the motivists, where we said that for the motivists, they don't think that claims of ethics are saying true or false. And then also we looked at subjectivists, which is from the word subject.
Hey, you want this too? Very good. Very good. Well done. Let's take Precious Dankwa.
Yeah, hello.
Precious, please go ahead.
Madam.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. The last week we learned about the forms of consequentialism. There are 3 forms of consequentialism. We have the
Please speak up just a little bit more, okay, Precious?
Okay. So we have 3 forms of consequentialism. We have the ethical egoism, which is saying the action is right if only it provides maximum the consequences maximize promotes the well-being of the individual. And then we went to the altruism, which is that the action is right if the consequence benefits the well-being of others.
Very
and then
good.
the utilitarianism is saying that the action is right if depending on the number of people it benefits, as the greatest number of people, and it's wrong when it does the right thing.
Very good. That is it. Well done. Well done. Let me take one more. I'm now at peace. One more. Any other person? I've heard from Prince already. I've heard from Precious. So hey, I have 4 hands now. Very good. So let me take Bill. After Bill, I'll take Gifty Baba Baden. And then I think we are all set. We'll walk ourselves through the previous slides. I even see James Jr.
Madam.
Let's take Gifty. Yes, please.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Please, the name is not Bill, but rather Prosper, because of the email address I'm using.
Oh, okay. When you come on, then you can always rename yourself. Then after the session, you revert to the original name, okay? So that if you have any online participation mark that I want to make a note of, then I don't write Bill, you see.
Yes,
okay,
madam.
so let's take your feedback. Then I'll go to Gifty. Then I see Martin.
Madam,
yes, sir.
We learned that what is always ethical is not necessarily legal, and what is legal is not necessarily ethical. Like example, maybe if somebody in another religion accepts incest relationship, it doesn't necessarily mean that it could be that other religions condemns that act. So that act is unethical, but it's legal.
Yo, Martin. Thank you. But that was last 2 weeks, so I think. That was when we did informed consent. But it's fine. It was still part of the issue of ethics. So well taken. Let's take Gifty Baba Baden now. Now I'm overwhelmed by many hands. And that's what I want you to do to me. Get me overwhelmed. Plenty hands up. I don't know who to call. Gifty, go ahead. Please unmute and respond. Gifty Baba Baden. Oh, Gifty, you're muted. Oh. Yeah, then let's take Ebenezer Akolbu. Oh, forgive me, Akolburi, Indo. Ebenezer, please go ahead.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
go ahead, lady. Go ahead, Gifty.
Hello. Yes,
Gifty, I can hear
madam.
you. Okay. Go ahead.
Please, last week I learned that according to the emotivists, they do not take claim as true or false. And also, according to the emotivists, there is no objective moral standard because there are no moral facts.
Okay. So you understand what that means, right? Okay. Continue.
Yes, sorry. And from last week, the test we organized, I think the first question you asked was, what is ethics? Yeah. And I learned that from ethics, it is mainly used to connote principles of right and wrong, not necessarily restricted to a specific context. Unlike morality, which is always considered or geared towards a specific content based on religious and cultural facts.
Very good. That is according to Kwame Dechi. Okay, so it might not be a uniform. So that you don't think that it's necessarily the case for everyone. Well done. These are very important points you make.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You.
You're welcome. I'll take Ebenezer Ndo, then Esther Bukari. Those who were not in class or you didn't do some revision, your friends are helping you here. Get some pointers. Everything they've said so far will come in your exam, both midsem and final. The final exam will be essays. Midsem will have short answers and MCQs. And so you should be looking out for the feedbacks your colleagues are giving. Let's take Ebenezer now. Ebenezer Indo, go ahead, sir. If Ebenezer is having difficulty, we'll take Esther Bukari whilst we wait for him. So Esther, go ahead.
Hello, Doc.
Hello, madam. Go ahead.
So last week we learned about the consequentialism.
Mm-hmm.
They said that it's a view that the rightness or wrongness of an action is determined by the effect by the action or the act.
The outcome. Very good. Very good.
Then we have forms of the ethical
Don't worry, no one is seeing your face, so feel free. Ethical what? Egoism, from the word ego, okay? So ego, when we say you have too much ego, sometimes we criticize guys as being egoistic. Say they have too much ego, they are too full of themselves, self. You know, that kind of language. It's a self-centered. I mean, those of you in psychology will have a better view of it when you engage it. But think of the word ego, the self-centeredness, and then you'll see why that view is described as what? Ethical egoism. Okay, continue. I took the wind out of yourself. Please continue.
So that is when a person acts due to our own interest. So, for example, if in the things will lead one into trouble, why not tell lies so that you trouble? Since it will promote the good of the person. That's the person's self-interest.
Very good. So it is always looking out for how the particular person acting will benefit from that act. So yes, we are looking at the outcomes, but the outcomes as it benefits what? The particular person, the actor, the ego in question. That's why we say it's an ethical egoist view of what? Consequentialism. Is that form of consequentialism that focuses on what? The ego, the person who's acting, how he benefits. Well done. You. Let me take. Sorry, you are not done yet, Esther.
So I want to say all the three forms under it.
Okay, go ahead. I think there's a little echo in your mouth. I don't know if you're using a mouthpiece. You could take it off so we hear you directly. Or go ahead. We'll manage.
Okay, then we spoke about
It's better this way, yeah. Go ahead.
The idea that is right if the consequence benefits others. So, for instance, if you to someone or showing consent.
Esther, go ahead. Don't worry. Go ahead. You can hear you.
In reality, which
So I think Esther is talking about altruism as well. I would have to.
Yes.
Yeah, altruism, where yes, it's a consequentialist view, but the focus is how it benefits not just the one speaking. We don't even include that person who acted, but how it benefits others. So you are altruistic. You acted in an altruistic manner. Very good. Thank you, Esther. Let's take the final comment. I think I get it from, okay, there are two hands. It can be the final. So I take Bright now, and I take Halima to Yakubu afterwards. Right, go ahead. Thank you, Esther. Right, go ahead. All revision. You see how much we covered? We covered all of that. So I'll listen to Bright now.
Madam.
Yes, sir.
Please, last week we learned about absolutism, which simply means there exists a universally accepted custom. And that is applicable to everyone, regardless of whether it's someone else.
Some of the portions of what you're saying are not very clear, but I would want to indulge you a bit more. If you could move around and then tell us what you are saying, please.
Please, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you now clearly. Please go ahead. Oh, no problem. Don't worry, I'll try and then get others. I'm hoping that we can hear you later on when we do the recording. So let's hear Halima to Yakubu now. It's a shame. Halima, to go ahead. Halima, to please unmute your mic. Hey, where are you all today? I can't hear Halima to. Halima, to go ahead, please. Unmute and ask and speak. Oh dear. All right. I think that we can move on now. Right now, I think I've disabled you. I will try and enable your mic shortly. Let me take, there's another hand up, so I want to take that and then I'll come back to you. I mistakenly disabled your mic. So I've allowed you now. You should be able to speak. Thank you. Go ahead, Halima, we are waiting, please. Priscilla Nkrumah.
Madam,
Is that Halima too, finally? Yes, my lady, go ahead.
yes. Okay, Madam, last week I learned that the subjectivists claim that our own mental activity is the only unquestionable fact of our experience, instead of our shared or communal, and there is no external or subjective truth.
Which people are very good? Which people are saying that?
The subjectivists.
Very good. Okay, thank you so much. Now take Priscilla Nkrumah. Priscilla, go ahead. Now I'm very impressed by the class. Go ahead now.
Hello.
Yes,
Okay.
Priscilla. Impressed with the class, I should say. Go
Last
ahead.
week,
Okay, Madam, there is a
last
thing
week
that
I
man
learned
is
that
the measure of
the
all things.
ethical. Hello.
I've called Priscilla Nkrumah. She's the one speaking now. So let her speak, please. Priscilla, go ahead.
Last week I learned that the ethical relativism is not the same as the cultural relativism.
Excellent. I was waiting for only that so I can move on. So Priscilla, it's the jackpot. That's all I'm waiting for. You see that I'm still asking because it's so central to a substantive portion of what we did last week. How people want to confuse the relativism of cultures with the ethics of culture. And that kind of challenge against absolutism is the one that is relatively a bit challenging because it depends on what? Cultural relativism. The ethical relativist argument look very, very compulsive. People fall into that trap all the time because it is obvious that cultures are relative and some things are done in one culture that are acceptable and not done in another culture. Those ones are very much pronounced. So it might seem like an obvious. People want to say it's obviously true that when it comes to what is right or wrong, it depends on which culture. That one looks like people don't want to even question it at all. But that is where our philosophical instincts are tackled. We ask very fundamental basic questions. Is there any culture anywhere at all that will endorse indiscriminate killing? No. Is there any culture that would embrace as a value telling of lies? No. You see, as soon as the culture does that, when we say the culture, any cultural group, any society, anywhere, as soon as that society does that, we will have a problem on our hands. That society will not even continue to exist. It will not be an existing and functioning society if it were to endorse indiscriminate killing of human beings, the telling of lies. I mean, you go into contract, like I said in the previous recordings, you go into contract and then we value our lying to each other. If any society did that, that society wouldn't even exist to see the light of day. The point then is, no matter the society we have in mind, wherever it is located on this globe, whatever the antecedent conditions are, we are telling the relativists, who is this? The ethical relativist. We are telling ethical relativists that please do not unmute your microphone. I keep muting and someone keeps unmuting. It is not a good online etiquette. And this is not our first time online. Please, okay? So keep it muted or don't touch the screen of your phone if you don't know how to manage yourself. So we have a very good recording that you can make use of. I'm not going to write an exam. You are going to write. Okay. All right. So I'm just saying that so ethical relativism is making a higher claim than what the cultural relativist is doing. The cultural relativist is making a claim that goes beyond just the ethical relativist is making a claim that goes beyond just describing the differences of cultures. The ethical relativist is saying something beyond description. If you are just describing the fact that people greet themselves differently, people eat different foods, people wear different clothing, people attend different kinds of worship, religious bodies, some pour libation, some hold their hands together, clasp their hands together and pray, others bow down, others kneel, etc. These are differences, and they are obviously the case. So if it is just that, which is what? The relativism of cultures, the differences of cultures, we wouldn't have had any issue with it. Relativist, if he or she is only describing differences. The problem is where the relativist is making a case of what? Differences in ethics, differences in what is right or wrong. That is what is problematic. And so our sister hits the nail right on the head there for me to help us continue from there. We had a very good discussion there. One of you already mentioned that doing that, where you move from the relativism of cultures to the relativism of ethics, you commit the naturalistic fallacy. And I was very impressed by that also, with that also. Hamid, the hand is up. Is it to contribute or we are ready to walk through our slides? If it is a contribution, please go ahead. So I'm sharing my screen now. I hope everyone can see it, please. I'm going to move through the slides now. If you can see it, excellent. There we can go. Priscilla, your hand is up. Is it a question? Yeah. Okay, it's gone down now. So I'll walk through them again. See, so we had this outline, everything on the screen. We discussed it extensively. See, the next one, whether moral standards are absolute or relative, we have seen that. The general traditional view of morality is that there are at least certain moral claims, if you like, ethical claims, that are absolute, they are objective, they are universal for the various reasons. Don't forget it. And then we went ahead to look at certain challenges, certain critiques raised against that view, from the emotivists to the subjectivists, and even to the relativists that we have touched on. The emotivists claiming, keep looking on my screen, please, because I'm projecting. These are all mop-up. Even your friends have covered all this a minute ago, but I still want to make sure that your eyes have seen where you can, your ears have heard where you can, and you have had another contact with it as a form of revision to help you get it a bit more entrenched. They are theoretical, so I don't want you to mess stuff, okay? The emotivist is even denying, saying that there are no moral claims at all. The claims of morality are not factual, they are not statements, which we can objectively agree true or false to. So they don't think there are objective truths. Okay, that's the emotivist. Why? Because the claims of morality for them are not even statements at all. Then you know what the subjectivists say. Oh no, they are statements. However, the truth or falsity is determined by what? The subject in question. That is why it's called subjectivism. You see the critique and objections against them. Then we just saw the relativism. We saw the two versions of relativism. The one that is easy to live with, because that is how things are really, is the descriptive sense of what? Relativism, which is cultural relativism, where we admit the differences in the way people live. That one cannot be contested. But then the other half, or the other part, which we would want to philosophically interrogate and critique, is where you want to argue from the fact that cultures are different, or people act differently, live differently, to conclude, therefore, that what is right or wrong should prescription, should also be defined by the culture. You say, no, sir, that cannot be, because there are certain principles, certain values that transcend cultures. Kwame Beyond Cultures give you so many such examples. Okay, we used two to buttress the point. So on your screen, you see ethical or moral relativism and the objections that you can raise against that kind of view. And that took us to consequences or rule, the second part of our discussion. I want to pause and ask. Some of you have already even mentioned that. Priscilla Bodo, your hand is up, please. Go ahead. Oh, Priscilla, you put up your hand though, or it's a mistake. If it's a mistake, so that I continue, I pause to give you the opportunity. Okay, let's hear Abigail Aka. Let's hear Abigail Aka, please. Let's hear Abigail Aka. Abigail, go ahead. If you unmute your mic, I'll take you off like I've done to your colleague. I don't want to do that because it is quite tricky in such times to miss certain sessions. But if you come and continually disturb us, I'll take you off. Go ahead, Abby. If it's a question, please. Okay, Abigail is sorted now. So, Priscilla Kodo, if you have a question, please go ahead. If not, then I continue. So I was saying that on the slides now, we see that there are two ways of thinking about our actions to determine whether they are acceptable morally or not. What will make your action right or wrong? Some of you already touched on that. There is a school of thought that says we determine the rightness or wrongness of an action by judging the consequences of that action. Okay, the consequences of that action. How do you do that? You look at what the effect of the action is to determine whether it was a right or wrong action. Those people are the ones we call consequentialists. Then the opposite of that, if you like, would be the school of thought that says that don't look at the consequences, just look at the rule. In other words, the principle underlying that action. Is it morally acceptable to say, for example, tell the truth? If that is ethically acceptable, then you tell the truth regardless of the consequences. Okay, so such a thinker will be deontologist. You will learn more about that in level 300 where you do moral philosophy, but you still need a foundation. I'm telling you, the deontologist from the word deon is a Kantian thinker. A gentleman called Immanuel Kant is the name that is associated with deontology. What does he say? He says that the action must emanate from a rule that you may want to universalize. If the law can be universalized, that principle can be universalized, then it qualifies to be what? A good action. So he is not looking at the consequences of the act. He's looking at the rule, the principle, ethical principle, and that grounds that act. Okay. So if you get that, then you understand the two ways of thinking of a right action versus a wrong action. Okay, and that means you understand consequentialism and you can contrast that with deontology. Now, your friends went through the types, or if you like, the forms of consequentialism. The lady struggled a bit with it, but still achieved it. She mentioned ethical egoism. We saw that when we engage, we make it the focus of the person speaking. So you are judging the outcomes because it is a consequentialist theory, but the outcome as it affects the specific ego, the person in question. That was ethical egoism. And where you are looking out for the interest of other people, like the way we do charity work, do volunteer work, it is not centered on you. It's a form of consequentialism also, but it's called altruism. And then we went to utilitarianism. That is the bit that I don't think I heard so much from many of you. I want to hear from you now. I pause. I got a main description of what utilitarianism is, but now I want to hear a little bit more from you all. You have gone to tutorial, right? And you have seen the slides. So put up your hand and tell me what you make of the utilitarian form of what? Consequentialism. I'll shut up for a while. Keep your hand up though, if you have a response. Essential, go ahead. Essential, Tiki.
Hey, it's a mistake, madam.
Okay, then let me take Emmanuel. Very good. Emmanuel Diepo. I think I know some of the names. They speak in class, but I know them, especially when we are online. Emmanuel, go ahead. Oh, Emmanuel, okay. Comfort, Ameudamkwa. Can you go ahead? What can you tell us about the utilitarian form of consequentialism?
Okay, with the utilitarianism, it speaks about the fact that an action is seen as right if it produces happiness to the greater number of people, and wrong if it's the vice versa. So, an example, if you are in a room and then someone, for example, people are in a room and I get to the room and realize that someone is holding a gun and wants to kill about 20 people. About 20 people. And please excuse me. I'm telling you.
All right, Comfort, thank you. I think that was a good effort. You always want to come again if you're ready. Okay. Emmanuel, you still want to comment? Emmanuel Diekpo? Okay. How about Esther Bukari? You ready? Esther Bukari. Esther, do you want to comment? You have a very noisy background there, Esther. Tell your folks that you are in a class. I don't know where the noise is coming from like that. Okay, so I'll mute everyone again. Esther, now that everyone is muted, please unmute, okay, and respond. Very good.
So I want an example to that she gave earlier. They are asking if if choosing yourself as a utilitarian, you choose the flavor that would give you the most pleasure, that is joy. So if vanilla, you have to calculate for the pleasure that it will give you and go and avoid vanilla because of its displeasure.
Thank you very much, my lady. So we can now move on. Well done. Oh no, I see more hands. So let's take Ezra. I'll take Ezra. I'll take Solomon Mate. Ezra, go ahead. Thank you, Esther. Ezra, go ahead.
Madam.
Yes, Auntie.
Madam, for the utilitarianism, we said it produces happiness for the greatest number of people. An example can be the PHCL policy. When it was first made public, that even though people spoke against it, the masses of the people were in support of the policy.
Yeah, there. So far as plenty people supported it and it will benefit a lot of people, that's even the point. We wouldn't mind if we were utilitarians to maximize the outcomes. In other words, we'll measure the rightness or wrongness of our action by checking how many people will benefit in relation to how many people will lose. And if many people will benefit, it has a majoritarian kind of position. You see that? Then we'll say, then we'll go for that action. So that is basically how you would want to summarize utilitarianism, where you are looking at what? The quantity and not merely the quality. So you will see that in the recorded session I gave you on the topic proper, when we engaged the Thursday group, I talked about quality versus quantity, which is an addition that you shouldn't miss. So on the slide now, you see J.S. Mill, that is John Stuart Mill, and we also see Jeremy Bentham. These are two names that you can associate with what? The utilitarian form of what? Consequentialism. Very good. One of them is stressing the quantity of the greatest good for the greatest number. So he's still looking at what? The greatest happiness, the greatest good for that benefits a greatest number. Okay, but how is he measuring the greatness? He measures it in terms of the quality, not the quantity, not just the numerical strength. In moral philosophy, you do the calculus. He gives so many, some words that you should look out for to define greatness. That's your friend Bentham. He will be looking at just the quantity, not necessarily the quality. I gave you the Sobolo example that you could mix it with so much water at the party. That's the drink that you can mix it so much, and then a lot of people will get. Everyone will get. If they want 3 cups or 4 cups, 4 bottles of the drink, they will get it. But it was tasteless because you keep adding and adding and adding water. Well, for the utilitarian who looks out for the quantity, he or she will be satisfied with that and say that you fed a lot of people and only a few didn't get hungry. So the Sobolo was well served. Something like that. Okay, I'm talking about the quantity versus quality now. I want to help you see how they differ in terms of their utilitarianism. Even though they are both utilitarians, Jeremy Bentham focuses much more on the quantity, whilst John Stuart Mill will stress what? The quality. But either way, what are they advocating for? You see, an action is right if it produces the greatest happiness, the greatest good, for the greatest number of people, and that actually will be wrong if it produces the reverse of happiness, the opposite. Okay, so it creates less good for less numbers. Now, the 2 forms of utilitarianism. I have done the recording for you. What do you have to say on this? The act utilitarianism versus the rule utilitarianism difference. Anybody? I would want to take Solomon Mate if he's able to. If not, someone else who is ready to respond to that can put up their hand. You're almost done. Irameji, go ahead.
No.
Oh, Solomon is ready. Go ahead. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Solomon. I'll take Solomon.
Like the presentations that my colleagues made, talking about the utilitarianism. You see, it says that an action becomes right when it helps or it brings about happiness to a larger population of the. So, for instance, we can talk about maybe nationally we are constructing a road from probably Greater Accra to Kumasi. And the road has to bring down the accommodation of people. Maybe we have to break down their houses and stuff. So, by looking at the importance of how the road is going to help us in our economy to the nation and also to expand or to give comfort to a larger population of the country, if it benefits the larger population of the country, then we can say that that action is right. But there can equally be a case against them, because how can we base people's happiness based on utility? Even though the people may be paid or might be paid or relocate, but what about their children, their schools, and whatever? So, in as much as an action becomes right when it brings about happiness to a larger population, there can equally be cases against them that we cannot equally base the happiness of people on the basis of utility.
Very good. That's a philosopher. Well done. So our friend even critiqued the utilitarian view, generally speaking, and goes further to show that in pursuing utility, we may be maximizing output. Yes, in other words, a lot of people may be benefiting, but the few that will be stranded, who will not benefit, even with compensation. The compensation, that's why the name is compensation. Doesn't make up for it, it just supports it a little. They will suffer. So you are overlooking the head of the few in your bid to meet the supposed benefit of the plenty. That's what Immanuel Kant resists with all his energy. He says, don't use man as a means to an end. Man here meaning human beings. You cannot use human beings as a means to achieve an end. Let's kill 2 of them to save the boat, because The boat is sinking. The weight is too much. We are 100. If we took off 2 people and threw them into the shark-infested water there, our boat will lighten, then we will not sink. We will save 98 and we would only kill 2 per. You see how I said 2 per, only 2. Kant says, why do you want to use human beings as a means to achieving an end? Don't sacrifice a human being for another. Not necessarily killing them per se, but don't use up a benefit that I am entitled to in the name of saving or, I want to use very easy language. I don't want to sound all technical, okay? So don't try to use what I'm entitled to as a human being as a means to benefiting the plenty. You say, oh, the department, we have 20 people. So if we sacrifice what one person is entitled to, we destroy her office, or I want an example that is accessible to you, just so that we all benefit. Kant says that is using man as a means to an end. But we shouldn't do that. Man is an end in himself. You see that in moral philosophy. Just know that that's one of the reasons why Kant is not very happy. So this afternoon, our friend is a Kantian who is resisting with all his energy. Not resisting as he doesn't think there's wisdom in it, but he feels that there can be problems with utilitarianism, where a few can be sacrificed, their entitlement can be sacrificed for the benefit of the plenty. Well done. I'm still asking though, that what is the difference if you remember and you have engaged the recordings, the class, the lecture, tutorial, whatever, on act utilitarianism versus rule utilitarianism. So what is the difference? Is there a difference between the 2 types of utilitarianism, the act one and the rule one? So I want feedback. I think I like how the class has gone so far. Less of me, more of the student. Solomon Mate, you spoke a moment ago. So let me take Irama if she has a response. If not, I see some new names, and that makes me very happy. So there's Charles J, there is Dr. Swiafe, and there is Archibald de Graft Aqua, Richmond Arthur. These are all new hands that are up, which is very good. Kingsley Ayinsu is there. I see Sechi. I see Asare Richard, plus the others who have spoken earlier. Well done. So let's take Charles J, maybe. Charles, go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, madam.
Good afternoon, sir.
Please, the act utilitarianism, so it gives the person in control the mandate to do or act when the results of what he's doing will benefit more people, or in other words, the greater proportion of the people. But for the rule, it antagonizes that. It says that you have to do it only when it goes in line with a rule. There is a law abiding what you are doing. You shouldn't just wake up and do whatever you want because it will benefit many people. You have to act when the consequences or whatever you are doing is in line with the law. So in other words, trying to tell you, eat your cake and have it back.
Very good. I like the second half of it. It comes out clearer. The first part of it, where you are talking the act utilitarian, though, is not that clear. But the second one helps me know that you understand at least the rule utilitarian very well, which is a very good sign. 80/100 can do for that question. So this is the point. That's what your friend said. He says the second one, which is what? The rule utilitarian is saying that, yes, focus on utility, the usefulness of the action. Yes, sir. Yes, please.
Don't be shy. Why I'm sorry.
My brother, it's fine, no problem. Listen to me now. I'll mute our friend. I thought he was even addressing me. The rule utilitarian is saying that, yes, ensure that you are focused on the consequences, but the action, which is going to yield the good consequences that we have outlined so far, the greatest good for the greatest number, that action that will yield the greatest good for the greatest number. Our friend says, make sure that that action conforms to what? An ethical principle. It is not just any action at all. You can't just do anything because of the end that you seek. You see, you can't say it's okay to kill just because it will save 98 of us in the boat. But what you are doing to achieve this very good end, that thing is wrong ethically. The rule utilitarian says you cannot do that. You can't say, oh, I'm stealing small from the government so that I'll take care of what? Some poor homeless children in society, like Robin Hood was doing. Stealing from the rich, obviously those who corrupted themselves to attain those riches, steals from them, who are not many, a minute few of society, steal from them, and then he will use it to feed what? The majority of what? The masses who are poor. And he felt by consequentialist thinking, in other words, if we're going utilitarianism and we're doing just purely act utilitarianism, it will be okay. Act in the way that will benefit the greatest number of people. Finito. But the rule utilitarian says, no, it's not enough to do that. Make sure that that action conforms to an ethical principle so that it is not just the consequences the rule utilitarian is looking at in this regard, if you got it. It's looking at the consequences as emanating from what? A rule. Then it becomes a difficult matter now. Are you a consequentialist or are you a deontologist? That's the confrontation that we could have with a rule utilitarian. But enough of that before we do moral philosophy. We can't do moral philosophy now. This is only level 100. I'm introducing you to it. But moral philosophy is in level 300. So you can imagine the steps you have to climb to get there. What should you know? Know the two forms of utilitarianism. Act utilitarians who consider only the result of the single act. That single act. He's not making that action a rule for you to do all the time. He's just saying that right now, I have to tell a lie, for example, to save a life or to save lives so that we can have the utility bit there. So I'm telling this lie now. It will be good for now, for this purpose. I tell a lie, which is normally not acceptable, but I'll have to tell a lie because to save many lives. But I've not made it a general rule. Then your friend tells us that, but for the rule utilitarian, no, not even that lie. As soon as you want to act, ensure that it conforms to what? A principle of morality. In the bid to what? Maximize the greatest happiness for the greatest number. Okay. If you got that, then some of the problems, I've given you so many of them. Can we always measure the full consequences of an action? I have given you so many, I think, in the recording that are homey and accessible to you. Can't always tell what your one action will lead to because you're not God. So you may be judging in terms of what the effects are in the interim or at the immediate time you are acting, but the repercussions could be many. How do you measure the full consequences of an action that you are taking? Only now. It's problematic. Then our friend's query, which comes out prominently here. What are the rights of the minority? The few that you are ignoring because the thing will benefit a greater number. So you are ignoring the few. What about their opposite view of the matter? It will be ignored by a utilitarian view, but the majority may not always be right. Even if they accept that it will benefit them, they may not be right. So do we have to go that way always? Would that be just after all? Then would we not undermine human dignity? This is now Kant. We undermine human, as if some people are more human and more important and more, we should place them on a higher pedestal than others. See, when you use them as a means to achieve another end, okay, this is the problem that the consequentialists will face. Then we gave our reflection question on what you would do. That one was extensively discussed last week, and also with the other groups. If you're a pharmacist or a pharmaceutical consultant and you had this scenario that we discussed, what would you do? There's no yes or no answer. You have to reflect and give alternative answers. So the deontology I mentioned is what you still see there. Duty. An action is right or wrong if it emanates, if it is a result of an action coming from a duty. If you act on the basis of duty, deon, you think that it has to be done. That is the right thing to do. So you do it, not because it will yield to something. So someone says, then what makes it the right thing? The right thing, because of the thing's intrinsic value. There I go do moral philosophy with you. It is right in itself. Whether it yields consequences that are positive or negative is inconsequential. The action is good in itself. So it is good to tell the truth. Finito. We won't look at what the consequences are, because the consequences doesn't make the act. The act rather makes the consequences for these people. And the problem is, if we went deontology, then people think of it that we may be overly strict sometimes. Then we don't get options when there are conflicting duties. We don't know what to do. Okay, so you have to have that in mind. And then now to our typical, another business ethic question, which is reconciling consequentialism with what deontology. At the same time, is looking at whether we are being emotive about it, or we are being subjectivist, or we are appealing to what transcultural values, or values that transcend a specific context. And here there was no answer given to you. I left you to reflect, and that is how we ended. I want to ask, do you have any questions? These are all mop up. Mary Hene, is there a question? Tamwa, Rebecca, Nyako. Please ask if it's a question, and I will do my best.
No, madam.
Yes, please. Go ahead. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Madam, please, my question is, what's the difference between deontology and rule utilitarianism?
You should ask the rule utilitarians. You are very brilliant. I think that it is because you are concerned. Hey, now you people, are you rule utilitarians? Are you utilitarians or you are deontologists? Okay, so this is the response. The deontologist is not concerned at all about consequences. It says don't look at the consequences. So they will not subscribe to the view which says the end will justify the means. You see how we speak sometimes. So however you get to the end doesn't matter. So far as you get to the end, the means doesn't matter. So the end will make the means. The means means how you got there. Then the end is what you have achieved. So if I get there, that is what matters. How I got there doesn't matter. It's the consequences that matter. The rule utilitarian won't agree to that either. And the deontologist won't agree to that either. You see, but the difference is this. The deontologist says, obey the ethical principles that you know as a human being will get there, regardless of the consequence. So if the thing is right, it is right. Do it. So tell the truth always. Okay? Don't kill. Don't say, I was raped. The child is not into my tumor, was put there by some crazy mad person. And me too, I'm an orphan, and I have school to attend, and this and that. So I'm going to abort. The question is abortion killing? You say yes. Is killing right or wrong? Say killing there is wrong, but this one, he said, don't say but. Is killing right or wrong? You say, oh, as for killing, it is wrong, but he said, don't say but. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, it's right. And so when you do moral philosophy, you see what Kant says, the deontologist, he will say that any action that you cannot make a universal principle, if you can't make it universal, that we should tell lies all the time, that we should kill all the time, then sort it, check it. There might be a problem with it. You will go into the hypothetical imperative and the categorical imperative and all that. That is not your concern here. I just want you to know that it is more intricate than the way I'm simplifying it for you here. But that is why there is another course that focuses on moral philosophy proper. Okay, this is philosophical questions. I'm teasing you. I'm giving you teasers for you to get the main outline. So for the deontologist, he wants you to obey the rule, the ethical rule that grounds our actions, That's all. Don't look at the consequences as the one that is going to define the rightness or wrongness of the action. But when you look at the rule utilitarian, he wants you to focus on the consequences. Remember, utilitarians are consequentialist theories. They are looking at the outcome, the utility, the usefulness of that action to tell whether it is right or wrong. However, my sister Mary, they want you to also obey the ethical rule to aid you to maximize outcomes. So they want the two. So check it against the outcomes that it produces, that action you are going to take. What outcome will it produce? You should be interested in that, they say. Yes, that is what measures the actions right or wrong. But in addition to the consequences, look also at the rule that underground, what's the expression, that grounds or undergirds that action. That's the rule utilitarian. So that's why I say that the rule utilitarian seems to be eating his cake and still wanting it back. You want to be consequentialist, yet you want the action that is yielding the consequences to do what? To conform to the ethical rule. So people criticize them that you should have a stance. How do we measure consequences? What if the consequences are good? We get the good consequences we are looking for, greatest good for the greatest number, but the rule is not in conformation or in conformity with what? Then what do we do? And what about where we are trying to conform to the ethical principle, but it doesn't yield the greatest good for the greatest number? How do we achieve both? So tell us what your heartbeat is and let us pursue that. That's what the act utilitarian does. It tells you straightforward that, look, do the action, any action at all is acceptable insofar as it will yield the greatest good for the greatest. Yeah. I don't know if that helps, Mary. Then I'll take Abel. Who asked the question? I think it was Mary, right?
No.
Okay, who asked? I think Mary has a question, but someone asked. My sister, are you sorted?
Yes, please. Madam.
Very good. Let's hear Mary now. Mary, go ahead.
Madam, please, I wanted to give the difference between the act and the rule utilitarian.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I think we've done a good job on that now. Sorry about that. Thank you. Abel, Liwa, go ahead.
Hello, madam.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
I have a question.
Please ask.
I want to know whether the court systems use the deontology in determining right from wrong.
The court uses a blend all the time. Sometimes the issue in question will look at the consequences. And if you ask me, my own assessment of it, sometimes, especially the high-profile cases that are always out there for us to observe, like the court hearings and stuff like that, I think sometimes they are more concerned about the impact on society. So they are looking at the consequences, how people will take it. That wouldn't mean that they will not look at the ethical principle. But remember that the ethical is not always legal, or the legal is not always ethical. We went through that. Your friend reminded us. Okay, so sometimes even the laws that are guiding the court settings and what have you may have issues that we can raise ethically speaking. Okay, but beside that, if we were to grant that, yes, legal matters are always grounded in ethics at all, if we were to grant that at all, it is not always consequences alone, and it is not always based on the rule alone. If not, then if one person steals a goat and he may be in prison for 6 months, then what happens if you took $51 million of our hard-earned Ghana money? Then we have to multiply that into one goat. So one goat crier here, how much is a goat? Maybe a goat is a very well-built goat. Kasiepa might be 600, 700, I don't know now. How many of such 600 will go into the $51 million? Then the person will live in jail for life plus his generation unborn till maybe the 100th generation, he will still not finish paying. So it is not necessarily a raw interpretation of the ethical principle underlying the action. Neither would it be a raw focus on the outcomes. That's why it has to go for hearing. There will be different perspectives to the matter. Sometimes people are acting subjectively or arguing from a subjective point of view, whilst others are being emotive about it. Others feel that no, this is relative to her religion. So some of the instances that I don't want to belabor again, but look at the Achimota school and then our Rastafarian brothers issue. There was some relativism in that. There was some subjectivism. You may think of Achimota as an individual entity. Then in that sense of it, you may be thinking of it as a subjective, entity saying that this is how we do things here. You can't stand it, you go your way. Then another person may be saying that, well, we are dealing with a human value here, which transcends culture or transcends context and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to answer you by saying there wouldn't be a straitjacket emphasis on one over the other. So if you're a good lawyer and you want to be one, sometimes you argue from the consequences, and most of the time it can be emotional. You can do that and people would say, well, yes, she has to be there to take care of her children too, even though she did all these bad things. But look at the effect on the children. They don't have a mother now. They've lost their father through this fight. The woman has killed the man, yes, but the children are there. Now they'll be orphans and, their life can go back. And all these are looking at the consequences of applying the rule to the latter. And it can have an effect. At other times, people may stress, look, he killed. The man has killed and he's sitting there eating. And he has left somebody stranded. We don't care whether the woman is better off or not. What this man has done is to kill. And so this person is emphasizing the rule, and the rule. Look at Jesus and the people that came to him to come and stone the woman that supposedly was caught right in the act. I always ask the question, if she was caught right in the act, then why is she alone the one that they want to stone? You see, the person was caught in the act. Why was she? Was she lying there by herself in the act of fornication? No, she would have been there with someone or something. But she was the one being stoned. The point I'm making is, so the people were there to ensure that the law, in this sense of it, okay, we assume that it's ethical. So the law was obeyed to the latter. They had their stones in hand, ready to strike. You see that the response from the master Jesus then was not, hey, you people, so if she was your sister, would you do that? Can't you have mercy? What about the family? All those would have been consequential. Jesus said, if you haven't sinned before, you throw the first stone. Simple. So he wants to apply the same law. This is the point. He's showing them that he can be very legalistic too. So if you sinned and you are walking around and the law was not applied, because the soul that sinned, the same shall die. So their acknowledgement that they had also sinned is the reason why they started living. And the records in the biblical text tells us they started going from the eldest first. Because from the time this brother, when he was maybe around 60 something, but when he was 2 years and was stealing fish, God has watched him, has been living, still stealing with zeros in the office. He is alive. That's what Jesus did, applying the law, another side of the law, so that you see that if you want to be very strict on the law, I can apply shame. And he didn't look at them like the judges don't look at people when they are passing judgment, because if you do, you are human. It will be tickled. A human being is the one that says the person is sentenced to death. She's a human being sitting there. She's not a god. So she has emotions too. That's why they don't look at the person. Jesus was looking down, writing, so that the people can be able, they can make their decisions like this. So my brother, you asked a very practical question. I'm trying to help you see that oftentimes there will be different perspectives to it. I think that should launch us very well to the point that we made when we were showing the problems with this one, problems with deontology. Look at that. When there are conflicting duties, the second one on your screen now, highlighted in yellow, down there. When there are conflicting duties, which one would you obey? You have a duty to preserve human life, You have a duty to tell the truth always, because both of those principles can be universalized. If you try to make a law that cannot be universalized, we'll have a problem. So it is important to keep the ethical principle of telling the truth always, telling the truth. At the same time, preserving human life. Here we are, if we have to tell the truth, and the consequence of that truth telling will be, will have bad repercussions on human life. What do you do? The example I gave you in class, I don't want to repeat them all over again. We have an unnecessarily lengthy recording that wouldn't have any new substance. That's why I'm trying to restrain myself from bringing them up again. But that pastor who is preaching, the thief has entered the auditorium, and the people after him with machetes and lighters, petrol here, to bring him out the area you live in. We know the story there. The guy will become obituary. So the pastor is in a fix. I tell the truth, somebody's son is going to die before he gets the opportunity of perhaps becoming better. If I don't tell the truth, I'm lying through my nose. I'm a man of God. That is a conflict of duty, which we think that deontology perhaps may not have responded to. We want to ensure that we are doing the right thing, but both ways is right. What do we do? Okay, so big boss, that's why a court hearing helps, gives us different perspectives to the matter, gives time for us to reflect as humans and make a better decision than we would have if we went and made decisions. Okay, thank you very much. It was a good question. Let's take Banaman, then I'll take Sarah, now Mele, Mati. Banaman, go ahead first, then I'll take Sarah.
I feel like butterfly. Don't fuck.
Please go ahead. Okay, if Banaman is not ready, let's take Sarah Mele. Please unmute first. Okay. When you get through finally, you can ask your question. Let me quickly just introduce you to the other topics, just an introduction to help your reading. I think that our IAs will have to be on all that we have done up to the question of epistemology. Just that. Rebecca Nwako, your hand is up. Go ahead. It's a question.
Madam, please, my question is, I'm really confused with the difference between ethics and legal. What is ethical? What is legal?
Oh, ethics just answers the question of right and wrong. More, you see, when we say ethical, what is the right thing to do? What is the wrong thing to do? But legal means what is law? What is within the law? Law. Legal is from the word law. So the law says you are allowed to, for example, let's say the law permits us to marry a goat. Some states allow that. Their laws permit that. You bring whoever you call your spouse, we'll bless it for you. Legal, you see, that's the law. So the law could be within a matter of what, the state or a religion or a cultural group. You know that in Accra here, depending on some, I mean, we are in August now. Before long, we hear that there's a ban on drumming and noise making. If you say you are Holy Ghost filled church, you go and make that noise. They will launch there because it's their law, customary law. Okay. The laws of our land, that is the constitutional ones, or if you like, statutory ones, or what did I say? Civil laws, what have you, also have prescriptions. So the law here refers to what? Legal codes, law. Not necessarily what is ethical. Okay, ethical is going beyond what is legal or what is religiously accepted, or what, that's the discussion we had at the introductory level. Okay, so do we change our laws? Yes, we do. Sometimes we say that, oh, now it is not wrong for you to do so and so and so. The woman can preach at the church. That's a legal law now, a religious law. Or let's use something that is Ghanaian. What did we not do in the past that now we do? Now, what did we appeal to change the law? Why did we say there's something wrong with our law? We have to change it. We were doing an ethical evaluation. See, when you evaluate the thing ethically, it means you ask questions of the law. what is right with it? What is wrong with it? Can we change it? Can we make more room for women to be represented in parliament? Could we do it this way? Could we make a constitutional provision for domestic violence? You know, when we are discussing like that, the laws are there, but we are asking questions whether it is right or wrong. So it is now an ethical issue. So ethics transcends legalism. Ethics transcends religiosity. Sometimes the religious prescriptions say we should do X or Y or Z. Then we ask ourselves, is it right? So perhaps one day ahead of your studies, you will learn what Socrates asked Euthyphro in one of the dialogues. Is an action right because the gods say it is right? Or rather, the gods say it is right because the action is right? That's a philosophical question. Which one is the antecedent and which one is the consequent? Is it because the action is right in itself, that is why even the gods subscribe to it? Or rather, it is the gods subscribing to an act that makes it right? You see, these are two sides of the coin. All these illustrations I'm giving you is to show you that the fact that something is legally accepted, the law permits it, doesn't mean necessarily that it is right in itself. It could be wrong. The law permitted the killing of Jews then in Germany, Adolf Hitler's Germany then. Okay, it was the law not to hide a Semite, a Jew. If you did, you were going to face the full rigors of the law. What did they do? Nothing. That at least that's the narrative. So let's recount that, I think. Right? What did they do? Yeah, just being Jew is the issue. They are crime. You shouldn't be Jew. If you're a Jew, you should be killed. Okay. My point is this: that was the law, but it wasn't right. So the legal is what the law refers to, whether it is statutory law, a nation's law, or customary law, or religious law. You see that legalism is dealing with the code that binds a certain group or state or collective. Okay. And we are saying that what is ethical goes beyond, is higher than what is legal. Why? Because even the legal prescriptions are subjected to what? Ethical scrutiny. What does that mean? We ask, is this law right? Should we? Is this not wrong? We are addressing the law now, but we are asking whether it's right or wrong. It means we are doing an ethics of the law. I hope that helps, my lady.
Yes, thank you.
Very good. These are very brilliant questions. Now I'll take Bannerman. I think Bannerman is back. If he's not back, just look at the slides and then engage it. I like it when colleagues want to assist each other. So they pull stuff from Sakai, for example, and share on platforms. It's good, but it is not always helpful. So I would rather you point your colleagues to the source. Point them to the source. Tell them, I have seen that Doc has uploaded, say, a PDF, or she has put up some announcement there on Sakai. Please go and check. If you're on a platform, do that. Whether you are a rep or someone who has the interest of others at heart, you are helping them better than you pulling things and posting on platforms, because then you are not teaching them how to fish. As soon as I change something and put a notice there, they won't go there. They will be dependent on you. If you're a child of God and you like evangelism, lead people to Christ, not to you. You won't save them. You may even backslide later. God forbid. So when you lead them to Christ, then the day you two are backsliding, they know Christ themselves, so they can help you out. But if you make yourself a betweener, a mediator between God and the person, and every time they should look up to you to read the Bible and come and tell them, you're not helping them. Once in a while, it's fine. You guide them, yes, because some are older than others, even in natural life. But you have to help people to learn to do tata, or they do it themselves. That's why I don't post things on platforms like that again. In the past, I used to do that, but students become overly dependent. So you post a notice, maybe schedule for this our IA that we plan to take with UGCS. They give us ID ranges, maybe Monday, whatever, 9:30 to 10:30 is the first group, 11:30 to this is the second group. You don't post it. The person doesn't know. They don't go to Sakai. We are checking activity of student on Sakai. I grade that. I look out for those. You are not doing anything. Every day, oh, class rep. Someone wants to be so and so, Afri class or UGRC something. Is the one doing all the researching, looking for information. They said something, then they come and post for you. You are sitting there, Magagia. It cannot be so. You see. So let me prompt you now that you are in level 100. It is not a good posturing. You go to the course site and engage the content. What have they put there? Once in a while, maybe you are not on Sakai now. So you say, oh, my friend, please, I've been told that there is an assignment. I'm not there. I'm still working at it. By the sister you do, you should be there. Okay? You ask for assistance. Once in a while, it's okay. But this over dependence on, I mean, people make it a preoccupation. Doc, please, my colleague said, I asked them, my colleagues, are you Jesus Christ, mediating between God and human beings? No, Jesus is God. I believe that. So he doesn't want any mediator. Go directly. So my contact, everything is accessible to students. You come, if you have a query, send an email or come to my office during office hours, or where it is very urgent, I've given my contact. Send a WhatsApp message. If you called me since morning, I wouldn't be able to pick because I've done back to back. You see, 8:30 to 10:30, 10:30, 12:30, 12:30, 2:30. I'm still teaching. So you won't believe that you are calling. I'm not. If it's a message, sometimes I pause whilst I'm waiting for your question. Then I look and respond to a quick WhatsApp message or an email. It's fine. But this idea that someone has access to the lecture, whether mine lectures or some other lecture, but others don't, it is not a right posture. We are not running a representative studentship where we have a representative at parliament who may go and say what he wants for himself and not represent the population. It's a word to the wise. Okay, so I am on Sakai now and I'm sharing, and some of you can see the slides for the question of knowledge is there. And I won't work everything out because it will be too much for you. I'll just show you some few things as outlined. And I want you to go there and engage that content so that we would have at least 6 topics. That would be from what is philosophy, why study philosophy, the methods of doing philosophy, the approaches, the branches, etc. Then we moved on to the question of metaphysics. We focused on what was it? Reality versus appearance for Plato's Allegory of the Cave. You did excellently well with that paper. The class, I think, in the discussions was well done. The different worlds, world of appearance, world of reality. Then now the practical application of it. The symbolism is there, yes, but it's practical use. When you study philosophy, where you engage and you come to a certain knowledge of a certain light, quote and unquote. It could be at church, it could be in academia, it could be in politics, whatever it is. You think that, if we asked these questions earlier, we would have made some progress. You found the light. You are obliged to return to the cave. That's a practical application ultimately. So you don't go around thinking you have arrived, you know it all. Whether you are a science-oriented person or a religious person, you want to be slow. Don't think that because God revealed himself to you as fire, so God is only fire. Someone is telling you, oh, he's a dove. He said, no, God is fire. You saw him as fire, Uncle Moses. John the Baptist saw him as what? The dove. So the point is you may have different perspectives to that same reality. The question of what is really there is not given on a silver platter through sensation, seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, smelling, says Plato. No. The same with science. If you thought that the world is, the earth is in the center of the universe, for many, many, many years, this falsehood because now we don't believe that. It's the sun that is in the center of the universe. Okay. So you were so certain that you wouldn't hear any other person. You could be wrong all this while. That's the point. So what is really there versus what appears to be there is a substantive matter. We will see again level 200 when we do Russell. Russell will now be looking at reality versus appearance in a frame of the physical, not a world of appearance versus a world of reality, some world of reality that is not given to us in sensation. So you should remember the distinctions Plato makes between the supposed two worlds and its practical application. From there, we move toward another question, which is what? A theory of what? Human nature. It's actually going to discuss what free will versus determinism, but I was a little silent on that because we got the key thing. What defines a man's nature from Ortega? And Ortega thinks that we shouldn't think of human beings as we would think of what? Things, because human beings can't change what they are metaphysically and economically, whilst things cannot. So there is something that we have. Even though we are natural, there's a part of us that is natural, so we can't do anything about it. But there is a part that is extra natural in his ways. Therefore, we are able to contribute to what we become or what we have become. That is so important for us as philosophy students who are trying to reflect. We are able to change the status quo, Ghana. So enough of the complaining. Let's do something. Let's make choices. The opportunities are open before us. These are all what Ortega, we saw that. Okay. Then we moved on to the third question. I think that one moved to ethics, and we looked at medical ethics, informed consent. I'm not looking at anything, but I have engaged the course. I'm not going to write an exam. Look at that. But you are going to write an exam. You should be able to do it the way I'm saying, not exactly that, but at least you should have a coherence of thoughts. It is a narration, it's a story we are writing for the semester. By the time you get to the end of the semester, this is the corpus of knowledge you have gathered in the course called what? Philosophical questions, and you are able to use it. That's the target. So we saw informed consent, why it is important to seek the consent of a person, even if you are the one administering health to that person. So important because it underwrites what? The dignity of a human person. Persons are autonomous. You can't treat persons as if they don't matter in the discussion. We don't care their level. We don't care how sick they are. They are incompetent in medicine, yes, but it is about them and they are human beings. So that was the thrust of the matter. In your search for beneficence, in your bid to avoid maleficence, and at the same time ensure that you administer health, you are being cautioned, if you like, admonished to ensure that you respect the patient's autonomy. That's the thrust of that debate. And so the Miles and Ajay paper, they try to prompt that, look, in doing that, we may not have to be entirely, we shouldn't feel entirely distressed about it, because the African conception of personhood would give a certain breadth of relief in determining who a person is, you see. So you can rely on the relational ladders, significant relational ladders, to ensure that you have preserved the autonomy of a person, even where he or she is incapacitated and cannot make a decision. That was what the debate was about. The discussion or that question was. Then we launched into the second half. We deals with what? That is, if I got everything correct. If I've left one of the topics, you should prompt me. But I think that we launched into business ethics, still in the frame of ethics. So we have done 2 questions on metaphysics, and we have just completed and revised and mopped up. I am almost like marking time with that, because I want to make sure you have good foundations in metaphysics. You've done some good foundational work in ethics from business, from medical ethics, and then we looked at business ethics, this time focusing on what? Consequences, deontology, the various parts of it. And then we have even engaged reflection questions. In your IA, if we finish with the question of knowledge, which we intend to do in person when we meet next week for Tuesday groups in person, Thursday group will still be online, I think. We'll look at it so that we always get to record the online sessions for the benefit of both groups as you prepare, okay? You can always, if you want to, you can always bring your questions anytime. Mail them. I keep responding to a number of them. Some to take them to tutorials and they have a good time. Okay, so we will have questions on everything we've done so far till the interim assessment, which I think was shared. I don't have my my thing here, but I think it was on the 20th or so. The date that UGCS gave. It's not finalized yet, but it's tentative and almost around that. They will give us a schedule clearly telling what time your ID is, because it's a big class. So they give a range, show you which computer or lab you should go to. Then you do exactly that, 1 hour. Don't go with your friend to a certain place. If they prevent you from writing, you have lost 30 marks. I won't be able to do anything about it. That is even if I wanted to at all. Okay. So Sarah's hand was there earlier. So at your Sakai, which you see now, if you went to the resource tool, we'll do just some 5 minutes more and rest. Okay, if you went to the resource tool, I'm there now. I hope you can see it. You'll see all these fine documents placed there. Tell your friends who are not on the site yet. I don't know what to do, who are still not on the site. I doubt that there are any, but if there is, that they will get the opportunity. I'm just waiting to hear that registrations have finally closed, completely closed for all regular main campus students. Then I'll open for the mop-up for those who just joined to have their own take at an assignment, which will earn them 10 marks. It will be a reading assignment like the other one, but not on what has been done already. Okay, then you will do fine. So you are contending for 30% mid-sem now, plus your final exam 50. You've done 10%. Then there's several in-class and online assessments you've done. All of them will work together to earn you the second 10%. And most of you already have the 2. So most of you on my file, you have your 20 there. You're just waiting to do well in your mid-sem 30 and your final exam 50, and you score your A. Okay, so this is the epistemology one. And I'm going to share that shortly. I'll just do the introduction and we'll be done like I promised. This is lecture 6. So let me stop this sharing and share that slide. Any questions, please? I think you've done well. Now, your hand is still up. Is it an old one? Theophilus Tete, go ahead with your question, Theo. Okay.
Hello, Doc.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted with the ethical and the legal differences. I want us to consider this scenario
Yes.
with the LGBTQ law that was passed. It was
Where?
mostly
Passed where,
passed
please? I'm sorry, passed where?
Ghana.
Passed where?
Ghana.
Ghana. Which law was
Yes.
that?
The LGBT something.
What did it say? What did the law say? I don't know about any such law. That's why I'm asking. Maybe Mabon to help me out.
I'm not sure whether it is passed or not.
So you want to be careful what you say. You see that? That's all I'm trying to point out. I don't know of any law passed, whether for or against LGBTQRSTWSYZ. Okay, but ask your question anyway.
Let's assume it is passed. To be mostly based on our cultural values and religious morals, which is
whose cultural value now? Yeah, right. You and whose?
Ghana. We don't agree on this.
What is Ghana's culture? Hey, some people greet in Ghana, yes, some greet by lying prostrate. Others don't. That is Ghana. We are all in Ghana.
But then we don't accept LGBT.
Who and who don't? Do you see what I'm doing? Because we are having a philosophical discussion. You and who don't? Do you understand me? Nanka, it won't be an issue here.
Yes.
You and who don't? So come again.
Madam.
Okay.
But let's say everything I'm saying is an assumed something.
That's the point I'm making. Then we can assume that we are all in heaven.
Okay, but let's assume
that we are all females.
Not real yet. So if such a law is passed.
Listen to you. Let's assume we are all females. Then would there be any problem? Whether a brother is marrying a sister or not won't matter, because we have assumed that we are all sisters. I just want to say that you cannot make certain assumptions. What do you do? That's the problem. That's why the debate doesn't go. If we were a church
That's
of a certain group, for example, okay, I say church of a certain group because certain churches married two brothers, in fact, priests. So if you are a church of a certain group, then because we share a common denominator, like a doctrine or a reference point, you can't even use the Bible now because people are looking into the Bible and they see that a brother and a brother can be husband and wife. A church. You see? So when you speak and you say, as a philosopher, the reason I'm saying this is philosophical discourse. If we were doing something else, we could talk, but this is a philosophical frame. You cannot let dogmatic statements and assumptions pass without questioning, even if it is your faith. That's the point. If we were all in that religious group where we share a common faith, common doctrines, which says we do not accept a brother with a calf saying that he's a sister. You see that? That will be within a certain frame. But Ghana, even I said, but Christendom, I can speak confidently on that because there is news to that effect. We can verify that. Within Christendom, priests are looking into the same Bible that you're also looking into, professing the same Christ you profess, went to get themselves married. Some two blessed people that came like that. Two sisters say they are, one is a brother and one is a sister. So when you want to quickly go and say that, oh, we Ghana, we this, we you and who is the question. You want to slow down. That's the point I'm making. Okay, before we even delve into the cultural bit. So I think what you want to say is that so where something is legally accepted but culturally frowned upon, and that's what I think Theophilus is driving at. How do we manage that? What grounds Ghana's, what do we use to run Ghana? There is a law of the land. You see, so and then Ghana recognizes certain customary, right? That's why you cannot play drums or make noise when the Ghana Traditional Council announces that this period is the period for the what is the thing? Ban on drumming and noise making. If you like, go and make noise. If the people come and massacre your area, the nation will not say anything because the nation recognizes certain customary laws. You want to do that, then leave Ghana for that period, leave the traditional area during that period. If you want to be there, then get a soundproof and be in your room and make all the noise. But for that period, they say they are reverencing their gods. If you don't want their gods, leave their land. You see I'm speaking. I'm a very an avowed religious that I don't feel shy talking religion and my faith. But I'm speaking philosophy, and you have to respect that. So the point I'm making then is, when you want to say what we don't accept, you and who, at what level? You see, at what level? If it is a cultural level, whose culture is this that we are appealing to? Maybe so, madam, generally speaking. Okay, so if it's generally speaking, then there will be exceptions. Because there are human beings who are Ghanaians, red and battered Ghanaians, who are defending it with all their energy. That's why I didn't want you to say, oh, but we Ghanaians, we don't. You and who? There are people at the court making a case for it are Ghanaians. They speak either Mese or Nke or Mebe or Nagodi. All right, I hope that helps. One more. Okay, one more. So if a question comes, then let me know. I was sharing the question. We have 2 minutes or so, 3 minutes left. We did a very good job today with the discussion. Let me show you the question of knowledge, and then we can go. So it's epistemological question of knowledge. That will be our lecture 5. I just walked you through all the lectures from lecture 1, what is philosophy, to lecture 2, Plato's allegory, to lecture 3, Ortega's man has no nature, to lecture 4, informed consent, medical ethics, to the second part, if you like, of lecture 4, but you will still call it lecture 5, which is what business ethics, consequentialism, deontology, what have you. And here we are with lecture 6, epistemology, the question of knowledge. We won't delve too much into it, but I want to introduce you to something. So let me have someone who can read very well in 2 minutes to get the introduction, and the rest is for you. Put up your hand, please, if you will do me that honor. Thank you so much. Hey, Damasi, Mary Ohene Damwa. Please read for me quickly. Okay, hey, I see 8 hands already. Well done. Let's go.
Questions of epistemology.
Yes, please.
What is knowledge?
Good.
Traditionally justified, true, or believed.
Okay, so there is no order. So traditionally, when we say what is knowledge, we think of knowledge as what? Justified, true belief. A belief that is true and you can offer justification for. That is knowledge. When we say we know, Madam just read it, Mary tells us that traditionally means that is what a philosopher or in philosophical discourse, it has been taken to be for some time now. We think of knowledge as what? A belief, first and foremost, which is true and has justification. So you believe something, it is true, and you can give us grounds or justification for that belief. Then it constitutes knowledge. Hold on, sister, go on, please. It's just the introduction. Go on. Epistemologically, when you make the statement, go on. Oh, I can't hear you, Auntie Mary. Epistemologically, when you make the statement, I know the lecturer, it means what?
You believe it.
Good. The second one, it is true.
It is true. There is a lecturer.
Yes. And the second?
You can justify your true
belief. Very good. Keep this in mind. This small thing I have just said. The other parts, you can read it on your own, but keep this slide in mind. I just wanted to show you that. The question of epistemology. So we move from metaphysics, the question of reality. Then we move to ethics, the question of the good, the bad, the right, the criteria for determining good and bad, etc. And we have now launched into the third branch of philosophy, which is what? Epistemology, the study of knowledge. Episteme, knowledge. Logic, the study. So the study of knowledge is also a branch of philosophy. And the first thing to engage us is what is knowledge? Because knowledge, it is what? We have been told that it is what? Justified true belief. A belief that is true and has been justified. You have grounded it. And Madam just told us that. So that simply means whenever I say I know something, I'm actually saying, 1, I believe it. 2, it is true. Then 3, I can offer justification for it. I can support my belief with what? Evidence. These 3 must come to play when you claim you know something. And on that note, I think we made a good showing of ourselves. Well done. We still have over 270 something students in class, and I applaud you for that. We'll record this, it's recorded, so we'll share the link. Thursday group, we cannot meet on Thursday, it's a holiday. I've already put so many things on that holiday. I'm working like a machine on that same day, but you should have a break. You have enough to help your revision in preparation for the assessments that are ahead. We'll meet in person for Tuesday, I think, because we are meeting Tuesday online today. So it means I'll have to meet you in person next week. Our Thursday group will be online, and then we'll share the link. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful, wonderful week. Send me your queries anytime. I'm glad to help. All the best, and take care.
Take care.
Bye. 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 Bye.